All right. Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to EnvironMental.
Yes, this is our podcast where we investigate different aspects of sustainability. Each month, we cover a different topic where we talk about a general overview. We read a book, we have a change maker chat like today, and then we have another overview. Today's change maker chat, we are talking with Ben Christensen, and who is the CEO and founder of Cambium Carbon.
Hi, everyone. Really great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So tell us a little bit about your background and about Cambium Carbon.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll just sort of start with where this started. So I've been working in the climate space for a long time, and as we know, we sort of have two key routes in which we can go to address climate change at scale. One is by reducing the amount of emissions that we currently put out, and also by actively pulling emissions in. So I've been focused on the carbon storage and sequestration side for a while, and I was working at the World Resources Institute on federal climate policy. And basically, what we were trying to understand is if we are going to actively be pulling carbon out of the air, how do we get the most bang for our buck? So there's a number of different solutions that fall in that space. There's solutions that fall more on the technological side, like direct air capture. And then the other side is natural climate solutions, things like soil carbon sequestration, capturing it in trees, and a number of different more innovative solutions as well. And for me, I've been focused on the natural climate solution side because there's so many co-benefits. So I'm sure that's something we'll talk about more later. But in addition to sequestering carbon, natural climate solutions do so many other really great things for our communities and for our planet. And so that's something that really drew me to that. So from there, focusing on natural climate solutions, one of the biggest ways we can really sequester and advance our carbon storage in the US and also globally is through this reforestation. So being able to get more trees back on our landscapes and doing that in a way that is sustainable and really attends to all the different land use types and competing land uses there is super, super important. But if we're going to do that, it's expensive and it costs a lot of money, and figuring out how to do that in a new way requires thinking about innovative finance and really connecting a lot of dots. So the core problem I was seeing is there's a lot of investment, and I think we're starting to see more and more of this investment from federal policy, investment from the corporate sector, and then also from private finance. We're excited about innovative climate solutions, and there's a gap between that sort of level of national ambitious really move the scale financing on these things and local self-sustaining projects that really serve local communities. So that's how Cambium Carbon started. And that's how we really got set up, is to connect those two dots.
Wow. Wow. So what can you tell us a little bit about what Cambium Carbon does?
For sure. So the first way that we help connect those dots at the national scale and then the local scale is through what we call the Reforestation Hub. So the Reforestation Hub is a circular economy in US cities that really connects the life cycle of an urban tree and can help support reforestation in this bigger way. So again, the core problem we were trying to identify is, look, trees provide so much value, but when you plant a tree, it doesn't really provide that value in the first 5 years. You don't really get the air quality benefits or the carbon sequestration benefits. So if you're going to quantify and capture those things, whether through carbon sequestration and carbon crediting or some other ecosystem finance mechanisms, which is basically just like, can we capture the core value of carbon or of the water quality benefits that these trees bring? That doesn't happen in those first few years. That happens longer term. So it's a great investment, but it takes time. And so what we were really trying to figure out is, hey, look, if we could also solve another problem related to urban forestry, then we could connect the revenues and the generation there to help finance the upfront costs of getting a lot more trees in the ground. Okay. And we can use that as a way to create sort of a self-sustaining flywheel that can really, really scale. So what we do is we solve the urban wood waste problem, which is a surprisingly big problem in US cities. And, when we think about deforestation, we often think about tropical or, really large scale forest scale deforestation. Yeah. This is also happening in our cities in a really big way. We see canopy loss in almost every city in the US over the last 20 years. And
what does that mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Canopy loss.
It's a good question. And again, please jump in if I'm being too technical or speaking in words that don't make sense.
It's okay. It's okay. I love it. I just, Yeah, what does it mean to have canopy loss in an urban city in the States? Like how many trees should be there? Like what does that mean?
For sure. So I think there's a few different things. The first is every city is different, every region is different, every tree type is different. But at a high level, when you think about a forest naturally, there's trees and those trees grow and they live for a really long time and then they produce new seedlings and new trees
Mhm.
grow. And then ultimately those trees die and they're replaced over time. One of the things we see in our cities is we have to play a much more active role in that process. So we as
Right.
humans in these built environments are largely responsible for that regeneration process and also are responsible for dealing with that end of life process. When a tree gets old and it goes down,
Mhm.
we've got to figure out what to do with it. You know, in a forest, that tree dies and then is naturally processed through, a biocycle and
Right.
is turned back into nutrients and back into the forest itself. So we have to actively do that. And at the highest level, what's happening in our cities is trees are aging. So in a lot of our cities, trees were planted, at different times, but a lot in the 50s and 60s, and those trees are getting older and older. And as those canopies age, and as we start to see more extreme weather events from climate change, which puts more stress on trees, you see a lot more tree canopy loss. And then in order to maintain that, and to keep up with that and sort of to keep that total tree balance or to prevent yourself from losing trees and actually to get more trees to have a net positive number of trees in cities, you need to be really active with reforestation and also with maintaining your existing trees. So investing in healthy current trees is a really important part of this as well.
How long does a tree live in the city as compared to when you say like trees are planted in the 50s and 60s? Like that's not a very old tree though.
For
Like
sure.
a forest tree lives a lot longer, right?
Yes and no. I mean, it's definitely a lot more stressful in cities for trees. There's a lot of stressors. They're just dealing with a totally different environment and one that isn't fully natural or they're not totally bioadapted to engage with. But that
Hmm.
said, I mean, you get lots of trees that are well over 100-year-old in cities as well. So I don't have the exact number, but it definitely varies. But it is shorter than in forests.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
it also depends on the forest type. Some forests have a lot quicker turnover than others.
True. Um, I'm taking a lot of notes and I have a million questions. um, how long does it take for a tree to be valuable? Like, how long does it take for you to, because it's hard to calculate, right? Like, the value of a tree, but
Yeah.
somebody does that. So, on average, like, how you said the first several years, is it 5 or 10, or what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really, really good question. And it also goes to what makes something valuable, which is, a bigger sort of philosophic question that we all have to reckon with. When we think about the value that urban trees provide, I mean, they provide a number of different values. They are really great at filtering out air pollution, helping to
Mm-hmm.
like process and move out, PM 2.5, which is a smaller size particulate matter, which is one that is linked to respiratory illness and has real human health impacts. So they're really good at that. They're really good at helping to prevent against storm events, and by reducing and creating more green spaces, you see less flooding, and so they're
Mm-hmm.
they're great at that. They also help cool cities, so especially as we see increasing urban heat island effect, where you get these really really hot days throughout the
Yeah.
year that put stress again on our systems and on our bodies. Trees can help really mitigate that. They save money through things like energy savings. A house in the shade during the summer uses way less energy. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
simple, piece there. And then I think one thing that also is harder to value and harder to quantify, but I'm sure we've all felt, folks who are privileged enough to have the benefit of green spaces near them, being able to get outside a little bit, especially during a pandemic like this, is so important for mental health. And, that's something
Yeah.
that every community deserves. And a lot of communities are left out of those benefits.
Yeah.
So that's all to say, it's hard to
Mhm.
value a tree. You definitely get a lot more value as that tree ages. And that goes to this important point, which is we need to plant new trees. We for sure do. There's tons of value there and we need to do that. But also a tree that's 70 years old is a lot more valuable in all of those aspects than one that is 7 years old. And so making sure that we're investing in things like maintenance and ensuring that is something when we talk to cities across the country that we see like, hey, it's really easy to get people excited about planting trees, but also it's so important to be maintaining the ones we have.
Yeah, exactly. And so one of the ways that you deal with the upfront cost of that is by selling the wood of trees that do fall, right?
For sure. So I apologize. I haven't really jumped into what our core model actually looks like. In its simplest form, we turn waste into wood into new trees. So that's like the simplest sort of life cycle bucket that we have. So basically right now there's 36 million trees that go down in US cities every year, resulting in about 46 million tons of wood waste, which is a lot. And a crazy fact is that more trees go down in our cities than in our national forests. So that is like an unbelievable amount of wood. And it's really expensive. So it costs cities somewhere in the range of $780 million a year to deal with this waste stream. And so what we do is we work with cities to help create the enabling infrastructure to be able to, rather than those trees being wasted, being sent to landfill, being expensive and being a burden, to instead be turned into a higher value product. And then that wood product helps to finance the new tree planting. So those wood products can look like all across the range from, you know, a dining table or a cutting board to flooring or trim in a house, to sort of higher volume products like mulch or biochar or compost, those type of things as well. And then those revenues go to support new tree planting and maintenance in cities.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's so surprising that a tree that falls down would just go into landfill. Like, why is that the immediate solution right now? That's
for sure.
crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I think there's a number of reasons for it. The first is that there's a lot of sort of disparate stakeholders in the urban forestry system. And, you know, cities also, it's really hard. You know, every person who we talk to in urban forestry in cities they're just amazing people. And they're also really limited by city budgets. And it's a line item that gets cut a lot. And something that we're seeing, you know, coming out of COVID is, you know, that is something that is a budget item that is getting slashed even more, which is really hard and also makes for these innovative financing solutions it even more relevant in this climate. So, you know, the reason why that happens and there's lots of it, but I'll give you one example is if you think of a tree like coming down in a storm outside your house, somebody has to come and deal with that tree, and they have to deal with that tree as soon as possible. You know, it's lying across a road. And if they don't have the knowledge and the capacity to know how to capture that and to like cut it in the right way, and if they don't have the infrastructure to be able to transfer it to a place that could actually process it, then it's not going to get used. And basically, like when you call in, let's say you've got an old tree that's dying outside your house and you call in a service provider to take care of that tree, you're paying them to get rid of that tree. As soon as that tree is gone, they are like losing money. So their easiest solution is to get rid of it as fast as possible. And again, there are some amazing arborists out there who work with local millers to really try to use that wood. But there's also a lot of folks in the system who really don't. And it's only about the cost and figuring out that. So our whole goal is making it really, really easy to capture those trees, making it super, super simple and having the infrastructure to do that in a really easy way.
Yeah. Yeah. So you work directly with cities?
We do. Yep.
Okay. And so when that wood is made into products, how does that system work? Do you work with local shops, or does the city work with local shops? Do local shops sign up to work with the city? Kind of all of the above. What does that look like?
For sure. So, you know, the amazing thing that we've benefited from is there's lots of people who have already realized this problem. And also they are just a super, super small fraction of the population, and they're only capturing a really, really small part of the urban wood waste. So what we're doing initially, so we work with cities on the front end, and we had 31 cities apply to be a part of our first cohort, which was really, really exciting. And to me shows just how much cities could benefit from having this problem solved.
Yeah.
So we picked our first 4 cities as part of that grant, in partnership with the Arbor Day Foundation. And then we're also continuing to work in 2 other cities. And across that, that group, like what we're really trying to do is work through sort of the legal and the different pieces around how can cities actually do this better, and then also thinking about how can cities set up their own infrastructure to actually be able to process these trees. Right now, what we're doing is there's small local businesses in pretty much every city. There's like 1 to 3 of them who are capturing about 1% of that wood waste and diverting it and turning it into a higher value product. So our first goal is to help these local businesses really grow, to help them grow into demand, and then help them grow into capacity. And then down the road, we're going to help add additional supply into the city, because the point is the pie here is really, really big. There's so much wood waste, and there's a real opportunity to displace wood products. I think one good example of that really sticks with me is I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was home, and we're going to a grocery store, and outside there's like firewood bundles, for instance. And if you look on the firewood bundle, that wood comes from Latvia, and it's shipped into Albuquerque from Latvia, which doesn't make any sense. Like the emissions behind that in the life cycle analysis it's horrendous. And if instead we could displace that with locally sourced wood that instead of going to landfill is out in front of your grocery store, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, that makes way more sense.
It does. It totally does.
So you're basically working with so much infrastructure. Sorry, I just got like really overwhelmed by the amount of infrastructure that you actually have to deal with to create this. Like the last couple of months, we talked about recycling and we talked about packaging, and we went really deep into those topics. And the infrastructure there is also totally massive.
For sure.
And this is just another piece of that. It seemed in my mind, it was like, oh, so you like get some trees that fall in the city and you take them over to the lumber mill. That's not what you're doing.
It's not. And it also sort of is. I mean, in some ways, again, like at a high level, it's sort of simple. Like instead of wasting those trees, we should process them at their highest and best use at a mill or at a sort yard. And then we should connect that to people who want to use those products. And then we're going to generate revenue, and we're going to connect that to new trees. And like when you say it like that, it doesn't sound that complicated. When you start to zoom in and look under the hood, there's a lot of things that need to happen.
That's so many moving parts. Yeah.
It's a lot. But for me, like, I think if we are going to do, and this is what I really hope to see as we see more and more startups in the social impact space, and we see business continuing to evolve and to really have, like, to do business better, is folks thinking about systemic change. And like, we're really trying to think about the full life cycle of everything we do. And to me, that is so important. And it's a lot harder than just doing one part of it or just like having one wood product. But I think it's really, really important. And, it's critical if we're going to do anything that's really valuable.
Yeah.
That was really nice the way you said it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Wow, this is incredible. So I guess I'm also curious, you said that right now local businesses are utilizing about 1% of that wood, and that there's 1 to 3 small businesses in each of these cities that are doing it. Do you think that I would wager to guess that there's more, but they just don't know about Cambium Carbon yet. They just like don't know about the system yet. So if I was a brand and I wanted to like use this wood, how would I reach out to you? How would I get involved with that process?
For sure. No, it's a great question. And yeah, in terms of the number of people in each city, it depends on cities. So like in Baltimore, for instance, there's been a lot of investment, and this is where a lot of sort of our work builds off of, is helping to scale the innovations that they've had in the city. right now, if somebody wanted to work with us, there's a few different ways that we can really support, and it depends. Again, part of working in a lot of different spaces is we can help solve a lot of different problems as well. So if it's city based, we can really help understand what are the enabling conditions that you would need in order to address this problem in your city, and have a lot of different technical analysis that underpins that. If you are somebody who's a business owner who uses wood products in pretty much any way, we would love to be in touch. We're creating our Carbon First Buyers Alliance for wood products, and really trying to create and grow in this bigger network of folks who understand the system, and also understand that it's going to take some time for this to really grow and scale.
Right.
But longer term, this could be a huge value, and also has tons of local value as well. So we would love to hear from you. We can source some of that early on, and then also would love to understand what your needs would be in the longer term in order to actually meet those, and to have wood products purchased through our platform. And so that's sort of our core goal, is to make it really easy for people to be able to access urban wood in their cities. And then the last piece is also on the tree planting side. So we work with partner organizations in these cities to, once we've generated that revenue, to connect it into tree planting focused on tree equity in communities that are traditionally left out. And we're also really working on making it really easy for folks who want to plant trees to be able to do that really well. So if you want to plant a tree in your backyard, there's not a great system to do that right now. And especially thinking about climate smart species and ones that, provide higher value carbon sequestration and have other co-benefits. We're trying to make that platform really easy. So we'll be releasing sort of this direct to consumer tree planting platform fairly soon.
Whoa.
Nice. Wow.
There's a lot there, I know.
There's a lot there. I heard you talk about folks that are typically left out, and I'm kind of wondering what that means for you.
For sure. Yeah. So I think, there's a number of different ways that plays out. Largely that falls along socioeconomic and racial lines. And, a good example of that is in Chicago, where you saw really historic systemic redlining, and districts that were really left out of those benefits. Is those maps almost directly align with urban canopy cover maps. So in Black and brown communities that were, pushed to the side, they were also left out of the benefits of having natural systems and all the co-benefits I talked about of trees. And that still exists in a large way today. And I think a really important piece that we are continuing to learn and understand and really listen through is, how do we help understand how to plant with communities rather than planting for communities? And for us, that means really working with local partners to understand, what do people's relationships with trees mean, and how do they differ between community to community? Because they really do differ, and it's unique to each space, and really being able to work with local partners and help enable them to continue to grow is really key. So that's our core sort of goal and thinking around that, is that there's tons of value to be provided there, but it has to be done in really a listen first and partner centric way.
Love that.
Absolutely. So is your goal to have like regional, the kind of teams of people who work with these local businesses and work with the communities to kind of understand and where you fit into the picture?
For sure. Yeah, at a high level, we want to make this a movement and make this something that people can really be a part of. And I think this is something I've certainly felt this year, as we're sort of understanding place in a different way, and a lot of us are forced to be home a lot more, and engaged in our communities in a little bit of a different capacity. Is there's so much value, particularly for urban folks, in having access to trees. And, this is something that no one thinks about. And it's amazing. We'll talk to somebody and share this idea with them. And then they'll be walking the next day and they'll see a big pile of wood on the side of the road that is chopped up really small. And it's wow, that actually is a huge tree that could have been turned into something more. Yep. And then could have gone back into recycling and revitalizing their community. So what we are really excited about is creating a lot of pathways for folks to get involved locally in each of these different sort of segments, and then really growing that movement within a local context and making it really easy for these sort of different parts of the system to connect, and then also bringing in the value of national scale thinking and investment in those different pieces. So that's what our core goal is.
Yeah, I think that's great. I read a statistic today because this whole month we're focused on deforestation.
Sure.
And so we're looking into it in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways that I think is really interesting with North America in particular is that the deforestation issues have lessened so much within the country.
Mhm.
But North America, USA and Canada also, but USA in particular, is still contributing to deforestation because, like you're saying, like they're importing wood from like Latvia and from all of these other places. So this seems like a really nice way to kind of slow down on even having to import wood
For sure.
for like building projects and stuff.
For sure. No, I think that is put really, really well. And that's one of the things where my like carbon scientist life cycle analysis brain is like, we don't have the data to fully pull out like the numbers yet. But I think it's pretty intuitive to understand the benefits of you got a tree from 3 miles away versus 3,000. Like there is clear climate benefits there. And we're working to help advance some of that research. And I think one of the other interesting things that's important to think about is, when we think about deforestation, it's driven for lots of different reasons. A lot of it isn't directly related to timber harvest. It's related to ag and other sort of globalized issues. But one of the things that we can help do is in urban forests, you actually get a lot of different species, that are different than your surrounding sort of wood products. And a lot of them have actually really interesting and unique uses that can displace exotics. But because there's not infrastructure, there hasn't been research, there hasn't been product development around them, they're not used as much. But actually, we could probably get a lot of our wood products needs really, really locally. And there's always going to be need for sustainable forestry as well. That's super real as well. We're not going to fully displace that, but we could displace a big chunk.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised. Like the more we talk, the more surprised I get that this isn't something that was like in anybody's forethought.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do with the wood? Why is it treated differently in a national park or a national forest than it is in a city? Is it because it falls onto the city to take care of it?
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. And I think like so much of this just goes to having like short-sighted incentives and like incentives that don't take in like a full value chain, and again, cities are really strapped for budgets and what they can do. Yeah. Do you have a question on that?
Isn't it a full value chain anyway? Like, isn't it also medium-sided because it takes a long time to grow a tree, but we have mature trees that fall down all the time.
For sure.
So isn't it also a short-sighted value chain to utilize the wood that is falling from the trees in a way?
It is, but I think I mean like it's even more myopic than that, where people, like, if you think about the person who's removing the tree, they're not thinking about what you can do with the tree. They're thinking about how can I get rid of this as cheaply as possible, And if you're thinking about folks who are planting the trees, again, there's all kinds of different organizations and different motivations there. But one of the things we should ideally be doing is thinking about what is the end of life plan for this tree? Like that tree is going to be 80 years down the road and it's going to, like be ready to like be turned into something. We should have a plan for that.
Totally. Yeah. Can an urban forest be Forest Stewardship Council certified?
Yeah, so they're working on it. FSC is
Okay.
working on it as well as SFI, and one of the things that we're really working on advancing is like getting LEED credits for our wood products, and also helping to create standardization there. So there's some great resources, and the Forest Service as well as the Urban Wood Network and a number of other core players have really helped to advance some of the certification and the thinking and the research around these different pieces, and like really helping to tell the story. And I mean, I wouldn't have stumbled onto this problem without like all of that work. So there's some really
Right.
great resources out there.
Right. Wow. What an incredible and like innovative thing happening. Yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't have stumbled upon it if like you hadn't accepted my friend request on LinkedIn, like just exactly when we were looking for someone to
Perfect
talk to about
timing.
this topic. Yeah, it really was. So serendipitous. Yeah. I live in Europe, but I would totally I live in the Netherlands, and I think this is something that like the Dutch culture would
Yeah,
absolutely eat up. I think they would love it.
capital of the circular economy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think the thing for me, and maybe a semi-concluding thought here, is I think it's a problem that a lot of folks don't know about and don't think about. I think this also has a real tie into sort of conscious consumerism and asking the question of where do we where do the things we buy come from, and realizing that we get to vote every day with our dollar, and that if we have an option to choose between a wood product from Latvia and one from down the street, you should. And like there's a
Right.
ton of value there. So I think that's a really important piece. And then the last thing I would say too is I just really feel like our urban forests can provide so much value, and being connected to them, and just there's lots of different levels of that, but for all of us, it's really easy to just pay a little bit more attention and to notice, and like to realize, wow, like that tree is actually providing a ton of shade, and then if you look under that tree, there's a whole different set of things growing, and then under this other tree, like there's a totally different ecosystem that's flourishing.
Right.
And so I think paying attention and just being more aware of that is a great place to start. And then I also think it's really fairly easy to get involved. You can get involved in tree plantings with local community organizations. You can reach out to me if you want to get involved in a bigger way. If you're looking for wood products, reach out to us. We're happy to connect you with local folks or to connect into our platform. And I think there's just a really big opportunity to start realizing that, hey, this is kind of an unexpected climate solution that can actually do a lot of different pieces. And the thing we haven't talked about that is really core to us as well is across the system, if we're able to do this in a big way, if we're able to build the additional infrastructure and create this new market, we're going to create a lot of local jobs, and we're really focused on doing that through workforce development. So with our workforce development partners, we're creating access for folks who have barriers to unemployment to get access into a new green economy. So what I think is really cool about this solution is addresses climate change in a big way, and it's also like addressing core near-term needs of job creation. And as we think about how do we come out of these economic crises from COVID, let's do it in a much better way.
Yeah. Super impressive. I mean, I just read that something like 2/3 of the wood production that we use right now can be done sustainably if the infrastructure is used that we already have is used properly. That still leaves 1/3 of like deforestation and that we use annually, wood that we use annually. And I think this could also, I mean, obviously have a major impact there.
For sure.
So, yeah.
No, I agree. And I think, you look at sort of the global emissions portfolio, which is always a little bit complicated to figure out how do you ascribe it where, but the building sector is a huge contributor to that. And, we've seen a lot of growth and excitement around mass timber as a way to have a more sustainable wood product that is used in structural building. So mass timber is just basically a way of cutting and gluing wood together so that you get these really structurally sound materials that can be used to displace like concrete or steel, which are much more climate intensive. Again, depending on where you harvest that wood, how you process it, all of that is really important. But if you're able to do that locally, that then provides an extra climate benefit as well, because you're using it to help address this other really big problem around green building.
Right. And that's something that how we got to this topic is because we were kind of just wondering, like, is paper the more sustainable option? Actually, like, is it actually? And it seems like that's still a big question mark. Like, but what is the most sustainable option for things like building and packaging?
Sure. And I think, to me, the answer to that is we don't know in some like broad ways, and it is really context dependent and depending on what you're comparing. But also, like, it's pretty intuitive to know when something is better than something else. And it's like, I think about this a lot when I think about the climate conversation and sustainability. It's like, we don't actually know 100% exactly the benefits of what this will be. And at the same time, we know that there's a lot of like low hanging, very obvious fruit where, hey, like, this is obviously better. And I think if we just focused on those things a little bit more than being super nitpicky about like, oh, was this, an extra megaton of carbon dioxide equivalent or not? Like, let's really focus on, what we know is better and is really obviously and unimpeachably better. We can actually get a really long way. And it's important to continue to have those like broader conversations. But at the same time, I think sometimes I feel like those hamstring us, and like in the environmental space, we end up like really being worried about those in a way that then limits what we can do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like when you're worried about the data, what is that, Courtney? When you're like thinking
analysis
about
paralysis.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't move forward. It's not like progressive way to think necessarily. Yeah.
For sure. And it's obviously super important. Like, we should always be questioning and measuring what we do.
Sure.
But at the same time,
imperfect action is better than not taking action.
Usually. Unless your imperfect action is really imperfect. Just depends.
Big mistake.
Yeah. Wow.
This is really cool. So how can people find you? How can people reach out to you?
Sure. Yeah. You can find us at cambiumcarbon.com, CAMBIUM carbon.com. The cambium is a part of a tree. If you think about the tree rings, it's the actual growth layer. So each ring is the old cambium layer. So we are called cambium because it grows outward. It helps the tree grow outward. And then it's also the part of the tree that facilitates nutrient exchange and water exchange between the leaves and the roots. So it connects upward and also then connects outward. So it helps grow. And then it's a connector, which is what we see as sort of our core mission, is to grow and connect. So we would love to connect with folks. You can reach out to us on our website and feel free to connect with us there. We also are on socials at Cambium Carbon as well.
Nice. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Wow. I actually wasn't familiar with that term, cambium, until just now.
Well, there's a Marty O'Reilly song called Cambium, which talks about trees a lot.
It's a song.
It's a Marty O'Reilly and the Old Soul Orchestra. The song is called Cambium.
Wow.
I really would like it.
I need to look that up. It might be a new
beautiful song. Actually.
It's a beautiful song.
That was my only previous reference to it. But that, wow, I love that. That really encompasses so much of what you do. I think that's
really beautiful. It's really beautiful. Nice work.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited about it, and just optimistic about where this can go.
Yeah, you're a young company. We did not say that. It's been like a year and a half or something, or
technically we've been incorporated for 10 months.
Okay. Yeah. Super young. I would say you guys are making waves being this young, and this is awesome. so mentioned
Yeah.
was great.
No, it's been super exciting to have so much traction and to been able to get a lot of support from big NGOs who are a lot more established and can help us really get off. We've had a lot of grant funding. We're in the process of raising our seed round of investment to really grow and scale. So I think it's been great. And like I mentioned, having so many cities apply is just really an indicator that there's demand and a need here.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so
Hopefully
exciting.
We'll be able to also send some brands your way.
Yeah, we would love that. Anyone we can connect with and anyone we can support, we'd love to.
Awesome.
Definitely. Yes. My goodness. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us the download of everything that you're working on. It's really, I mean, just such an innovative solution, and I can absolutely see that this is something that cities, there's no downside to investing in this type of infrastructure. So
for sure. And thank you both so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it and enjoyed the conversation today.
Absolutely.
Us
Thank you.
too.
Thank you for the work that you do.
Yeah, you as well. It's important. We need all of it.
We do.
Every little bit helps. Yep.
It does. It really does.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for watching.
Yes. And if you love this content and you want more and you want to see other change makers like Ben and learn more about things like deforestation and other sustainability aspects, please subscribe because we're coming to you every week.
Right on. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Thank you all.